moving, rotating and resizing. In this video we're going to show you how to control your model with more precision. We'll go over Blender's coordinate system, and just a reminder for those who know and for those newcomers to the 3D world, coordinates are always listed in the order X, Y, Z. Always in that order. So if you ever see a series of numbers with commas in between them like that, we're talking about the X coordinate, the Y coordinate and the Z coordinate. Let's hop over into Blender. So here we are in Blender with our wedge, and I'm now in object mode as well. The first thing I'd just like to do is draw your attention to our 3D manipulator widget with its orange blob in the middle. Now that orange blob is called the origin. Now at some point during the construction of my wedge, the origin has ended up outside of our model, and that, in this case, I don't want that to happen. So I want you to go over to your tool shelf if that has happened to you, and where it says set origin under the tools options, I'd like you to change that and set the geometry to the origin or the origin to geometry. One moves the object, one moves the origin. But essentially you'll end up with your origin back in the middle. Right, so I'd like you to put away your tool shelf for the moment and bring open your properties. Now I'm just going to scroll up here so we can see our transform options. Incidentally, if you're not seeing that, you may still be in edit mode. If you're in edit mode, it gives you a different set of options. In this case, you want to be in object mode. So we've got location, rotation and scale. Ideal, that's exactly what we want to play with. Now the location is the location of that little orange blob there. So if we set it to 0, 0 and 0, surprise, surprise, the wedge itself, or that orange blob, the bang of the middle, sits where X, Y and Z all equal 0. And you can tell which way is positive and which way is negative simply by the direction of that arrow. So if for some reason you had your model upside down like this, you could still see which way was positive and which way was negative. I'm just going to flip the model back over. Wow, not feeling too dizzy there. So with this we can control our model precisely. So we can say I want the origin to be at X is 1, and we can see it's moved it along by 1, and Y equals 4, and it will shift it towards us that way by 4. Now the rotation is very similar. We've got X, Y and Z rotation. The Z rotation would be, if you imagine a skewer going through our object where that blue arrow is, if we play with the Z, you can see it spins around as if someone had literally poked a skewer through the Z axis. Now finally we've got our scaling options here, so we can scale things individually. Now the great thing about this is it scales the actual model itself. So it's not relative to these X, Y and Z's anymore, so it remembers how we created the model in the first place. So if we scale it on the X-axis, it will actually get narrower and wider. If we scale it on Z, it will get taller and narrower. And of course we can actually input the values we want in here so it's precise. And if you need to set it to a certain dimension, you can do. So here we can set X equals to 1. So that would make the width of that, in this case 1 Blender unit. I could set the Y, that is the length, to 4. So now that's a 1 in 4 wedge. And finally the Z, I could set that to 1 again. And we end up with a much more sensible sized wedge. Well, that is still a pretty big wedge being a meter tall, but there we go. And that changes the scale accordingly. So if we change this to 2, you'll see that the scale has also changed from our original model, but the dimensions have allowed us to make the wedge an exact scale on the X, Y and Z axis. I feel a challenge coming on. What I'd like you to do is grab your wedge and move it to an exact location. So I'd like you to rotate the wedge so the pointy end is facing up. Make it half the size it was before, and make sure the origin is placed at 0, 4, 2. So pause the video now and go try doing that. Okay, welcome back. Let's hop straight back over to Blender and do our challenge. I will want, if I imagine a skewer going through my model, but I'm going to just set it so that the rotation is 0 on Z as well, so we can imagine things a bit better. So I want to move that so the pointy end is facing up, so I'm imagining a skewer going through it. It would go through the X axis. So I need to go to X and I want to rotate it 90 degrees, and there we go, our pointy end is facing up. Now we wanted the location to be 0, 4, 2. So here we can go 0, we've already got set to 4 fortunately, and here we can have it set to 2. So there we go, it's set at the right location. And finally the scale. So back to our original scale, this would be 0.5 to make it half the size, 0.5 here, and again 0.5 there. So now our wedge is set at the right coordinates. Let's just check. 0, 4, 2. Yep, it's half the size it was before in all dimensions. Yep. And finally, rotating the wedge so the pointy end is facing up. There we go. Excellent. So that's exactly positioned where we wanted it. How did you guys get on? I'd like you to post your results in the discussion against this lecture. And I'll see you in the next one. Take care.